I officially don't trust BookTube. Hello my fellow gods and goddesses, welcome back to my channel. My name is Heather and today we are doing a judge a book by its cover on The Gilded Wolves by Roshani Chokshi. This is a little late on the hype train. This just came out in February, but February has come and gone and people have forgotten about this glorious masterpiece, and that is a crime. I am here to remedy that. This video is going to be a rant, but not a rant on the book, a rant on the fact that this community let this book die. The Gilded Wolves follows a gang of characters as they are attempting to steal an ancient artifact. From that quick little blurb, I'm just gonna go deeper into kind of the world building. That's gonna be what we start off this little discussion with. I always say we as if you're here with me inputting your own discussions, but you know what? You can if you comment down below while I talk to you. I feel like people have kind of cheated talking about this book in a more thorough way, because I don't think saying, oh, it's just about a gang of characters as they're trying to find an ancient artifact really paints the picture of this book well and gives you enough information going in. So this is going to be my selfless good deed of the day, and I am going to give you more. This world is very interesting because it's kind of steampunky. It's set in 19th century France, and unlike other books that I've read recently, it actually has historical basis. So this is definitely a historical fiction fantasy, which I adore. And this book is heavily dealing with themes of colonialism. That is the biggest theme of this book. It's the entire foundation of this book and the entire core of it, because like the magic system and the politics and the characters are all impacted by colonialism, and Roshani takes the theme of colonialism and shapes it in a way that makes it magical. It has a lot of alludes to mythology and biblical references. There is this magic system known as foraging, and foraging is this ability to create or manipulate things. It's you either have a mind affiliation, so if you have a mind affiliation, you can influence someone's thoughts, consciousness, dreams, etc., etc., those kinds of things, and matter. It seems to be the more common foraging tactic. Individuals with matter affiliations are able to craft things like dresses and basically everything. They are able to, this is kind of where the steampunky references come in. They are able to craft buildings and machines and clothing and basically anything you could think of, this world is shaped by. This foraging ability is rooted in a kind of biblical, mythological kind of basis. It is centered around the Tower of Babel. Foraging is believed to be a step down from God's creation, so humans are able to kind of emulate God's power on Earth via foraging. The secret society is known as the Order of Babel. Now we're getting into the colonial aspects of it. The West, which also not everybody thought that this foraging was rooted in Christianity, because obviously not everybody in the world believes in Christianity. But the West can't comprehend that. They're like, no comprende. What do you mean you actually have other deities and other belief systems and other spiritualities? No, you don't. You believe in this white guy. Yeah, that's not really white, but we're gonna make you believe it so because white supremacy. In this Order of Babel, there are multiple houses. There is the House Kore and the House Nyx. There were two other houses. One was the Fallen House, which fell, and then there is the House Varinth, which the Order has deemed dead, even though they're not dead, because one of our main characters, Severin, is actually the last remaining member or patriarch of the House of Varenth, but for reasons that you learn in the book, they decided to get rid of his house. These two houses, House Corey and House Nyx, they are kind of the keepers. Like, again, it's very much a secret society kind of thing. Everybody knows that foraging exists, but they don't really know about the houses and the order and the semantics, the hierarchies of all that. You know how secret societies do. They have all the art and special rich things and artifacts and all that jazz that they really don't deserve or shouldn't really have. We start off this book in the beginning of an acquisition of an artifact that will eventually lead them to a greater quest or a greater heist. So the plot is extremely fast moving. Like, you are thrown in and the book is never slow paced. You are always in the mix of action or revelations. You get so much of the actual heist and what an actual heist entails. This book is just so drenched in intellect. Roshani is so smart that I was just absolutely amazed by all of the intricate science and history and math that was in here. And also, I'm not good at math or science or anything like that, but I was still very much following along. Everything in this book was explained thoroughly, completely, and clearly. Every single time Roshani introduced a new idea, she explained that new idea in the exact same paragraph, which I want you guys to keep that in mind when we go into the criticisms that I've heard about this book, because that's very important. So the plot is absolutely fantastic. The characters, flawless. Every single one of them has such rich personality and backstory, and you learn about them right off the bat. You would think that we would have that lack of development because we don't really see the beginning, like the seeds of the heist, but that is not even close to being the truth. Like, because you learn so much about them amidst the plot. This book really shows that you don't have to sacrifice plot for characters or vice versa, because Roshani gives you both at the exact same time. A huge part about this book is just how much representation in this book there is. There is black representation, a ton of biracial representation. I believe almost all of the characters are biracial. At least 3 of them are, I believe. So, and then you have Filipino representation, you got Indian representation, you have Jewish representation, you have autistic representation, you have bisexual representation. There's a bisexual love triangle, for God's sakes. What more could you want? Anyways, but we're gonna get into that when we get into the romance, which is gonna be my next point. The romance in here. There is an incredibly angsty romance in here. Again, like I said, there's a bisexual love triangle. I just, deliciousness. I can't. If you watched my The Beautiful review, you guys know I love triangles where I adore both of the potential partners, and this is no different. Like, I adore both of them and I just want them to all be together in one relationship. Make it poly. Make it poly, Roshani. The humor in this, the banter in this, the character dynamics, the love that all of them feel for each other, and the writing. I'm speechless. I'm not a person who necessarily is a huge purple prose kind of gal. I don't mind it if it's done right. This was done so right. I truly don't think I've read a book more beautiful than this. Maybe The Song of Achilles. But other than that, like, the writing in this is just exquisite. The aesthetics in here, I I could cry. The settings in here are so rich and beautiful. The hotel that Severin runs, there are gardens sectioned off to represent each of the 7 deadly sins. And then there's not even just the hotel, there's also this really grand kind of, I don't know what you call them, but like a dance hall, just the descriptions of that. Every single place that Roshani takes you to with these characters is described with just dripping, gorgeous, beautiful scenery. You feel like you're there with the characters. If you are a person who loves rich setting, this is porn for you. I was wet reading this. I truly was. Again, I'm not a huge like purple prose person. It wasn't confusing in the slightest. It was just beautifully stated. Like, I was not confused a page into this book, and that's just going to transition me into my overall thoughts about how this book is perceived in this community. I don't want to say I'm disgusted because that's a bit dramatic, but you guys know I'm a Leo. You guys are expecting dramatics from me, so I don't feel too bad. I really am just so disappointed, and I mean outraged by the way that this community has put off so many people towards this book. I am not the first person to say these things at all. Again, as I said at the beginning, I just didn't read the Gilded Wolves while people were saying these things. This book, again, takes the theme of colonialism, which is the most impactful event that has ever happened in human history, and I don't think a lot of people really realize the impacts that colonialism have. Like, I'm sure people do, but I don't think people really do. Racism was created by colonialism and imperialism. Race, as we know it, did not exist before European countries started to take over other countries, enslave them, and exploit them for capitalistic means. Roshani took that extremely heavy, catastrophic event, made it and twisted it into a narrative that is both humorous and magical through this group of people who have all been impacted by these ideas, and catered it to a young adult audience. But because it had a heist theme with a group of teenagers, people did not want to read it and did not want to put the effort into it because they thought it plagiarized a white woman. Like, do you see why I'm so mad? Like, I think it's so unfortunate. I feel like more people need to be talking about this because it's such a crime that people did this. I'm not even going to mention that book in this review because why do I need to? You shouldn't, period. If you didn't like the writing style, if you didn't like any other things, I'm not talking to those people. I'm not talking to the people that genuinely just couldn't get into the book, didn't like the writing style. Those are valid. Those happen with every single book. I'm talking to the people that didn't give this book a chance because they thought that it was a copy of the other book that we all know I'm talking about, but I'm not going to mention in name in this review because it's an insult to Roshani. There's no correlation between the two. I'm just genuinely so upset that this is how the Gilded Wolves is perceived by people in the community. So many people have been put off from this book because of those comments. And because of the saturation of those comments. It's not just one person, but because one person started to say it, everybody was then like, oh my god, you're so right, oh my god. Like, I read so many Goodreads reviews that I just want to scream to the world because it's so insensitive. How can you take this book that deals with such important topics in such a magical and beautiful and amazing story and dismiss it just because you think it's too similar to another book? The point, you're like, it's gone. You're gone. It's in another dimension. You are so misinformed and so misdirected from this book and what it means. The only person that I've seen comment on the colonialism and the aspects of those themes is Cindy. Like, that says all it needs to be said. I'm not saying that she's the only one, but she's the only one that I noticed in, like, at least a video review who's really mentioned it to the extent that it really deserves. That's ridiculous. And if you don't think that's ridiculous, I don't know what to tell you. You need to take a history course, you need to take a race and ethnic studies class, you need to talk to a Black, brown, Asian person. Chill out a little bit. I'm getting a little too heated. We're gonna admire the colors. We're gonna admire the beauty. I feel like this look is it really green enough? Considering the cover is mainly green. But I wanted to bring all the colors in because I love this cover. Aside from the whole comparison debacle, a lot of people say that this book is confusing. I think some people, not all people, will use a confusing magic system as more justification to not give this story a chance. Because, as I said earlier, I was not confused in a single page of this book. Every point and every new element of the magic system, the world, the lore, etc., Roshani explains in great detail. I will bring out the book. I'm going to pull from a random tab. Let's go a little bit in the beginning. Okay, so this is explaining how the houses work. So it says, while most of the houses of the Western world used and collected foraging objects made from both affinities, as we've mentioned before, mind and matter affinities. Matter, liquid, solid, gas. Basic 4th grade science class. But you know, I guess that's confusing for people. House Nix collected treasures of a particular strain, those that showcased an affinity of the mind. House Nix had objects that spliced memories, soaked dreams, gathered someone's will in a tight fist, brought forward vivid illusions. It even explains what specific mind affinities that they liked. So, we learn about mind affinity and that House Nix likes mind affinity things. Let's flip to another one, shall we? Hypnos grumbled. The fallen house believed that foraging was a subset of alchemy. You know, transforming matter and turning things to gold and such. Okay, there you go. It explains alchemy if you didn't know what alchemy was. So those are just 2 examples, and I could go into all of my yellow tabs of Roshani clearly introducing a new aspect of the world and of the magic system in a clearly defined way that is in the exact same paragraph. I don't understand how people can rate books like Nevernight 5 stars, but then say this is confusing when this is more rooted in reality than Nevernight is. And also, books like Nevernight, not to, you know, shit on J. Kristoff, I love Nevernight too. I gave that 5 stars. They're, most of the time, letting you drown in open water until they decide to tell you what those aspects mean and what that magic system means. Roshani tells you a new part of the magic system in the world, and then she explains it in the exact same paragraph. I don't understand. It definitely is a little info dumpy, and that's because, or this book throws you in, like there isn't really any build-up, there aren't any slow points. So it does come off as a little info dumpy at the beginning. It is a little overwhelming because you're just thrown into the world and she's still telling you as you go. She's still teaching you as you go. But again, it's a little overwhelming at once. You're just thrown in and you're giving all this information. But I recommend tabbing. Another criticism that people are saying is that the plot is more important than the characters. I completely disagree. As I said earlier, Roshani shows that you don't have to sacrifice characters and plot. I've seen a lot of people claim that they don't know these characters and they don't feel like they know anything about them, their personality. I could tell you 5 things about each of the characters from page 50. Not even, maybe even page 20. Did you not read? Because Roshani clearly knew information about them. So I'm like, I really don't get it. Don't just let the loud voices in the community dictate how you enjoy a book and how you perceive that book. And let those voices cloud the actual words on the page. From my reading experience, not a single one of those criticisms were valid. Now that I've kind of ranted a little bit, I'm just going to end off this video on a high note. I'm going to talk about more of the things that I really loved about this book, getting into like kind of the specifics. Loved the symbolism that she used. One of the my favorite examples and one of my favorite things about this book. So I mentioned that the hotel's gardens had the 7 deadly sins aspect to it, and it goes more than that because, as I said, Severin is the owner of this hotel. He was an orphan. He jumped around from 7 different families. Each of the 7 fathers that he's had, he groups them as one of the 7 sins. I am such a hoe for that. Biblical symbolism, I feel like, is something we don't get enough in books. My atheist ass really craves more of that for some reason. I think it's just because of the America's Next Top Model photo shoot that really just grounded the foundations of who I am as a person. So the fact that Roshani gave that to me, not only in beautiful aesthetics, but also beautiful symbolism of human flaws, stunning, revolutionary, never been done before. I loved it. I also really love Zofia. She is the Jewish character in this. I have to read out the scene when we first meet her. So the first time we see Zofia, so she's talking to Layla, and we're in Layla's chapter, and she says, with Zofia, conversations were not initiated so much as caught at random and followed through until the other girl grew bored. I set some fires in the House Core's courtier room. That's the first line that Zofia says in this book. Just, oh yeah, I set some fires. We love an arsonist, don't we? I just adore that girl so much. She is just one of my favorite characters. Loved Hypnos. Hypnos is a very flamboyant character and I adored him. It's so good. I can't get over it. Like, I want to reread this book right now because there's so many layers and so much development between these characters and this world and their friendships, and it's just, it's so good. I am officially a part of the Gilded Wolves support group. It was 5 out of 5 stars if you haven't, you know, already guessed that from my screeching about it. It doesn't deserve any less. It really doesn't. Just for what it accomplished and what it did, it deserves 5 stars. Ooh, that's good. That's good. That's a good one. ColourPop just said bet. Like, ooh, okay, man. Glistening, just like this book. I am going to do my liner and my lashes and my lips just like I always do, and then I will come back with my overall final thoughts. Alright you guys, so here is the final look. I really love how this look came out. I was just winging it, but it came out looking real great, so I am very happy about it. Here is the little comparison, and I think I included all of the colors. It's probably not as green as I probably should have made it, but I think it's a beautiful look to go with a beautiful book. So, closing thoughts on The Gilded Wolves. The plot is fast-moving and captivating. The characters are all so unique, so beautifully written, and just such little nerds that are doing their best. Themes in here surrounding colonialism through a magical and humorous way is probably one of the most important stories that I have read in quite a really long time. And the writing is absolutely stunning and creates like such a gorgeous world that combines the horrors and beauty of 19th century France. I really hope that this review kind of convinced some people to pick up this book that were put off to it before, or maybe if you did try to read this book but you put it down, or maybe you want to reread it with this new lens that I kind of presented. Either way, I really hope that more people read this book. I really hope more people fall in love with this book and praise it. I know the sequel, The Silvered Serpents, is coming out early next year, I think in February, so this is honestly the perfect time to pick up The Gilded Wolves and get hyped for the sequel, because I know I am, and I'm so excited for the rest of this series. I believe it's going to be a trilogy. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your day. Bye!